Welcome to the Chai Chat Podcast, solutions for empowered living. Engaging, educating, empowering. Each week, your hosts Taron Puri, author of Finding the Guru Within, and Steve Harvey, mindset mentor to A-list celebrities and stars, bring a combined expertise of over 6 decades in mentoring, coaching, and inspiring positive solutions to the negatives which keep us stuck and unhappy. With a focus on solutions versus problems, in each episode, they discuss topics relevant to the human condition, which challenge us from moving forward into positive growth and ultimate freedom. Through stream of consciousness, unscripted dialogue and inquiry, they provide practical, deep, and actionable insights to support you in creating and living a happy, successful, fulfilled life. Join us each week and learn how to access your own inner GPS, your guru positioning system, which comes preset with all the solutions you need for empowered living. Living a life of ease versus effort is only a thought away. Let us show you what works and what doesn't.
Welcome to Chai Chat. I am Taron Puri.
And I'm Steve Harvey.
And today's episode is going to be just amazing. I mean, I know I say that every time, but let me tell you, we are very, very excited about the topic today and a special superhero guest we're having on. But let me give you the title first, people. I jumped in. It's called Genius Unleashed, Connecting to Our Inner Compass. Genius Unleashed, Connecting to Our Inner Compass. And what may all that be about, you ask? Well, friends, wow, we have an opportunity today to explore how we can, right from the start of this journey on this planet, own our genius and learn how to unleash it so that it can carry us and support us to bring more ease into our lives. So today's conversation is going to look into the whole idea of genius. But hey, Steve, I have a question for you. Do you know that you are a genius?
Of course. Why wouldn't I?
Oh.
Yeah. It's interesting you say.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, it's interesting you say that. You know, that I'm reminded of the old quote that says that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid.
There you go. I think you have just described our education system, if I can say that and not get a lot of hate mail. But, you know, I'm asking you that question because, okay, you're a little bit different, unique. You know, I was called unique anyway. So you're unique because you do believe that you're a genius. But, you know, I think 8 out of 10 of our friends out there would go, hell no, not me. I know a genius. And, oh, that guy, you know, with the funny hair and the accent. Oh, that Einstein guy, he was a genius. Right? I mean, that's what a genius is, isn't it? Right? And so I remember growing up, we weren't encouraged to think down that line. We were encouraged to meet a certain base normal or norm or sort of a middle line of competence, if you will. We were always tested to see if we had a certain degree of competence. But never was there the environment in schools, especially around genius. And even the concept that we are born in the light of the light, and we are the light. And when you look at the source of the word genius, and you know, we know the word genie, and what happens when you want to manifest a genie? You got to rub 3 times.
Yeah.
Right? And so in that sense,
your wish is my command.
Exactly. And the genie is 100% capable of granting any and every wish. Well, guess what? That genie, that genius, which comes from the Latin, I think, have to do with light, is who we are. However, it's trapped in there. So you may know you're a genius. Now, the next question is, you didn't know you were going to get tested today, did you? See the stream of consciousness stuff? You couldn't prepare, right? Your multiple choice answers, but
Can I call a friend?
No, yeah, right. Now you want to be able to, or a 50-50, right? So the thing is that you may even be lucky enough to be halfway there, which is recognizing that the core essence of who you are is light, which is genius, okay? But the other half is manifesting that genius, okay? Just like if you don't rub 3 times on the belly, no genie, right? So the genius remains trapped inside that vessel for time immemorial until somebody comes along and says, I wonder how I can free the genius within. That's another cool word, freeing the genius within. And that's what's inspired me today about our guest, Tammy Vallieres, because I think she's onto something cool. She has really figured out in quite I would say brilliant manner, how to release that genius within little people, and who are going to carry this torch forward, and in such a positive way. And I don't think it's limited to little people. I'm still hoping there's hope for me. So I'll be asking her, but I think that, going back to the source, we're all about going back to the source, right? Why try to keep on fixing the symptoms? Well, I think that when you have little kindergartners, the cute little buttons that come up and show up, and I call them boo-boos, the little boo-boos, when they show up and they're so open and they're so in their genius. Well, one of the presentations that I give, I give the statistic that up till age 5, a child's mind is open and they're learning astronomically because they're in play. When a child is at play, when a human is at play, the mind is open and learning happens organically. The minute they get into, quote, school, right, the learning stops. Isn't that shocking?
Yeah, and I think that was also the subject of the famous TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson.
Okay.
And he referred to NASA had done they wanted to find a way to look at the effectiveness, measure the effectiveness and creativity of their potential rocket scientists and engineers. And so they had a couple of doctors conduct some tests on a variety of people, but they used 1,600 children from the ages 4 to 5 years of age. And they found that 98% of preschoolers were considered creative geniuses. But by grade school, only 30% of those children were considered creative geniuses. And by high school, that was reduced again to 12%. And by the time they were, graduating, it was down to less than 2%. And so I think, that the subject matter today is so timely. And I think the quote that I used at the beginning, I think it's so fitting for today's subject matter, because I think it takes all types of people with different talents and creative skills to create positive change in the world. And I think, one of those people is our esteemed guest today, hero intelligence teacher, Tammy Vallieres. Tammy is a visionary in the social and emotional program called Oliver's Corner, and the co-founder of the mental health and wellness program called Compassionate Crew. She's an elementary school teacher, a motivational speaker, a hero intelligence coach, an author, and a photographer. And every day she gets to do what she loves. She shares her stories and knowledge and passion with children so that they can discover their genius. So I think this is the time now to welcome Tammy Vallieres onto our podcast. Hi, Tammy, are you there?
Come on in, Tammy, as they say in the shows.
Hey, everyone. Wow, thank you so much. And I've been listening in the back backstage to what you guys are talking about, and I'm just lit up because this is my purpose, my passion, and what I live, breathe, sleep, eat, drink every day of my life. So I'm just honored to be here in your company, within your wisdom, and to share in the conversation to help other people get this message out to the world, because we're all master students and we're all master teachers, is what I say. We all have something to learn, and we all have something to teach one another. So what an amazing podcast to be able to do it. I've got my cup here, and
way to go. Cheers.
Thank you.
I like that. We're all master teachers and we are all master students. That one line is so powerful, Tammy, that if each of us, upon waking, can embrace that thought, we can move into the world with a whole different energy. My mentor from years now has taught me that to be humble and to know that we are here learning from each and every individual. And it's so embarrassing for sometimes, because sometimes, he'll work with me, he'll pop into my world and give me some insights and instructions and teach me something so cool. And instead of me thanking him, he thanks me for the learning. He thanks me. And I'm like, what's going on here? Because I want to be thanking him. So he embodies that, what you've just said.
I love that. And when it comes down to it, really, like when you were talking about that study about the 98% geniuses, I live that. I embody that study. When I look at my kindergarten students, I know that the 98% of the geniuses in the world are in front of me. So I do see them as my geniuses. I do look to them of what they can teach me. And a lot of people don't really understand it. They think I'm just saying that. But if you think about it, what are they a genius at? Maybe they don't have the math skills or the science skills, or they don't know how to make a bed. That's not what we're talking about. We're not comparing apples to apples at that point. We're looking at what do they have to offer me. And so when I think of Taron, when you were talking about the power of play, children know how to play way better than I do. So when I want to learn how to find my inner child and play, I look to them. When I want to use my powerful imagination, I've lost my ability to really expand my imagination. So I look to them. When I want to, embody the virtues and values, right? Like kindness and forgiveness and non-judgmental. My goodness, children are incredible at that. And the other area that I absolutely love, that I know that they're my master teachers on, is the power to believe. Like you were talking about the genie. If you don't believe it, children they're very open to believing. They, where us, how often are we shut down? So if you don't believe it, you're not going to achieve it. And the other thing children are incredible at, perseverance. They could fall 1,000 times and keep getting back up. There's no, I'm not going to do it. Look at them learning how to walk. Children are always showing us, even if they fail, they get back up. How many times with adults, right? We fail once, twice, 3 times, or we don't even allow ourselves.
Wow, that is so foundational what you're saying here, that right at the beginning, right, believing, going inside and really coming from a place, I would even take it to the next word of knowing, like to know who we are is so critical. And most of us spend our lifetimes trying to find that out. Right, like here, right, go ahead.
Yeah, also what you said, children believe, but I think it also really helps to have someone like you as a teacher who believes in them.
Correct.
And I think that's so important to set kids up for success, and so many children don't have that opportunity in life, and I think it's incredible that, the work that you're doing with them, that they have someone that does see their potential, does see their genius, and believes in them, and is able to nurture that, so hats off to you, Tammy, for the work you're doing.
Well, okay, now I have a question, Tammy.
Yes.
Steve was already tested earlier, so I figured it's only fair, right? You know, everybody gets questions. But so this all sounds great and amazing, and I want to learn more about what you're doing and how you're doing it. But were you always like this?
No. I can answer that really quick.
Oh, that was so, you know, I think sometimes it's really important that we get a context from where a person's coming from and what their inspiration was, right? Because we're talking about resetting ourselves, renewing and getting inspired and innovating and all these great terms. And I think it would be great to, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit of, you know, like, did you have that in your environment growing up? What happened? What's happened with you? Have you always been so kind of enthusiastic and cheerful and together and wonderful, or like, so that we can get a context of your journey?
Yeah, I'd love to share that. So I have to admit, I always have been a very, you know, half full cup person. I've always been friendly and kind-hearted. That is my nature. It's my disposition. I was not the bully. I was the person that brought children together, right? I was the one that wanted harmony. That was my heart and my soul. But I grew up with parenting and in the school system from those old paradigms and old patterns and old ways. I always had a kind heart, but you still learn, right? You need to learn better from either books or other people or your inner wisdom, right? And through experiences. So when I went into school, you know, at this point, I was following a lot of patterns, but one thing that made me come in as a teacher very different from the beginning was I struggled through the school system. So my pain to purpose was I didn't feel good. I didn't think I was smart, right? I thought I was learning disabled because labels were put on me early. I started at 3.5, right? I was a fall baby, very late fall baby, when there was children that started in January. They were almost a year ahead of me. So you're talking, when you're 4 and 5, that's a big difference developmentally. So when you're coming in as the youngest, you're being identified as not being able to show up as a good learner, but was it developmentally appropriate? Now with my adult brain and my wisdom as being a teacher, I can make sense of that. As a child, I didn't. So what happens is my self-esteem, my self-worth, you know, really started to shrink. And I went into college, you know, thinking maybe I'm going to be a hairdresser, not to put down hairdressing, but I didn't think I was capable of anything else. It was only one of my strengths, but it wasn't the one that I wanted to do because I didn't think I was capable of doing it. So what happened is I went into college and I realized then what my superpower was. And I realized when I went into a elective course called Psychology 101, and I was like a 98% student, and the prof came up to me and said, "Could you tutor?" And I was like, "Don't you realize I'm not smart?" And it was like, "Well, you are." And I realized that we're all smart in different ways. That if we, and this is why I love using analogies, if you and Steve, that you brought this up with animal school, right? If you judge a fish, right, to climb a tree, it's not going to think it's smart. But if you put it in the water, that's its winning formula. So we all have different winning and losing formulas. My losing formula was, let's say, mathematics, but my winning formula was personal growth and development. Psychology was my master, my genius. So had I known that, right? Had I known that earlier, if there'd been a teacher like myself or like you guys who believed in me at that age, I would have been able to build upon those strengths and realize that I don't have to be strong at everything. Right? I need to be exposed to all things, but I don't need to be strong at everything. Animals aren't strong at everything. And you can build up your strengths, right? Know your weaknesses, but build upon your strengths and step into that. So that's why I like using analogies. I like using, you know, questions and things like that. And I ask people, what's your superpower? Right? You know, if I asked you both right now, what's fish's superpower?
Swimming.
And what's birds' superpower?
Flying. They're pilots.
Right. And what's squirrel's superpower?
Did you say squirrel?
Yeah.
Oh, collecting nuts, man, boy, they're good.
Yeah.
And hiding
Right?
them, they know how to hide them.
Hide them and climbing, right? So
And climbing, yes.
we could name every animal's superpower. How
Yes.
come, how do we get out of, graduate out of school and not know our own superpower? That is, to me, the biggest injustice in the world, because if fish didn't know its superpower was swimming and missed the boat in landing in the water, we've done a huge injustice. If kids don't know what their superpower is, right, and we haven't prepared them and helped them to really understand that, then how are they supposed to find their winning formula? Like,
Yeah, we set them up to fail.
we set them up to fail. So those are the two things that I look at. Number one, I let them know they're capable and competent. We all have a genius. We all have a superpower. What's yours? And we're here on a discovery, a mission discovery, to find that out, right? And we're all helping one another. And then we all don't want to be in competition. We're in collaboration. We want to leverage everybody's superpowers and start coming together in unity, in collaboration, to support each other. Because when we do you know the power that we possess with our circle of influence, and what we all, when we know our superpower? Think about Marvel, right? The Avengers, they all know their superpower. And then when they come together, they can create massive impact. Right? So how do we find our superpower, come together, and create impact? That's a beautiful question, isn't it?
It's an excellent question, because, the word community, I always like to say it is coming to unity. And
Beautiful.
so when we're talking community, we're talking collaboration. And I'm recognizing, once I recognize my superpower, then I can see yours, because I can only see what I see in myself, right? Or let me put it the other way, I can't see what I don't see. And so I think that when I recognize yours and Steve's and everyone's superpower, then the idea of competition it doesn't even come up.
No.
Because why would I be trying to also do this or get that or be able to do that when Steve's right there, who's perfectly capable, and because it's a superpower, it's in alignment with him. So, but I feel that the environment in our globally, society-wise, has been set up in such a way that we are told there's not enough, and that somehow we have to not be open, because that makes us vulnerable, and if we're not vulnerable and open, we can't receive support or anything else. And so we close up and we try to build castles on top of everything and everyone else. And that's the model that I grew up in, the competitive nature. Rather than setting my own inner being, my own self being my biggest competitor, I made you and Steve and everybody else as if I can ever be you. Right? Or if I can ever, like, I would lose every time. It's kind of crazy, and yet somehow I think I can do that. So yes, there's the whole idea of relearning, coming together in a way that's collaborative. Because by the way, last point is I talked earlier about the lowest common denominator in education. Well, in other education systems, they go the other way.
Right.
They're highly trained, and the kids are in tutorials and classes and piano and violin and football, like every day. And they're being made into these super competitive, you can't go near them people, with the whole intention behind it being material gain and security. So
and exhaustion. So I wanted to engage the audience a little bit. So I thought I'd have fun and play. So I want everybody just for a minute to quiet their mind and see if they could share what their superpower was. So I'm going to ask you guys, Taron and Steve, if you know your superpower, and I'll share mine. And not only that, I'm going to ask you if you had a tool. So what's Batman's superpower, what's Spider-Man's superpower, and what would you hold in your hand to describe that? So, Taron, if you can think about that, and all the audience listening in, all your guests listening in, if could they name their superpower and a tool to help them describe what that superpower is?
Okay, I just love unscripted talks. Now I'm on the hot seat, hey?
So
Oh man,
I can
karma.
tell you, I can tell you this. One of my superpowers is creativity. Like I have a very creative brain. I can see the big picture. And one of the tools that I use in the classroom to create curriculum and program is my magical wand. And the
Okay.
other thing I do is I bring peace, right? Peace begins with me, and I bring my little friend, Peaceful Pig, and I start with my bell to bring silence. So those are two of the things that I do. I create this conscious community, this peaceful community. That peace begins with me, and I have my little friend, Peaceful Pig, in his little jar, his little energy ball.
Oh, it's great for people listening that just want to describe. You have this cute little pink pig that is inside a jar, and it's the cutest thing I've ever seen. And he's called Peaceful Pig.
And
Okay.
you know what's funny? I just before I came onto the show, I picked a card, and I thought I let it come, like whatever one jumps out. And this was the card that came to me. It's called Power in Peace.
Yes.
And it says
Wow.
this. I know it was the perfect card for this
Wow.
for this chat. Those who love and practice peace leave beautiful ripples in their wake. Have you ever watched a ripple expand on water? They travel a very long way.
Oh, how beautiful.
Mhm.
So that we're really not inconsequential. Every thought, every action has a ripple effect, and when that comes from peace, guess what? Okay, so I'm glad we were able to chat a bit so that I could, multitask my brain and come up with something smart to say. Are you grading this, by the way, today at all?
I don't
Okay.
give grades. I only give feedback.
Okay, thank you. Because every time I hear teacher, I'm like, oh.
No
right?
grades from this girl. I don't
Okay.
believe in them.
Good. I can breathe now. I can breathe a little bit, and I am a law school graduate, and they compared everybody to everybody in big at the end of every semester that was put up on the walls, right? That's how competitive that was, right? You got ranked. So, but anyways, yeah, what am I from time immemorial? People always talk to me. Like I remember being 9 years old on a train as we emigrated to Canada, and on a train from Montreal to Calgary. And I remember this lady who, oh my God, she was old. She must have been like 35 or 40, maybe even 40. Like she was old, eh? I mean, I was like, it's an older lady and everything, right? God, perspective. Okay. And I remember coaching her. She was talking to me as you would. And I was very well aware. And even when I was in my early teens, people would confide with me. They would talk to me. They would tell me their issues. And I always had, right? Yes, Tammy's pointing at herself. And I always had the right words. And they weren't coming from me, but it took me a while. Then I got these great mentors that showed me. So I'm very empathic. And there's an ability for me just to know how you're thinking. And if I want to narrow down a superpower in terms of the different gifts, I'm a clairsentient. So,
Beautiful.
right. I can literally feel where the blockage is in your body and then give it word and help us to navigate. So, and then the tools again, meditation is a wonderful tool that I've been able to, I get guided meditations and there you go. You've got your meditation tool. So that's it. I've worked with crystal technologies and oils. I actually have created a whole line of natural oils called Listening Heart Essentials. And I have meditation formulas and different formulas to help the mind either quiet or for us to get vitalized and uplifted, but not hyped. So now that you've got me talking about it, I'm thinking about it because I never connected the two, that I actually created a line of natural oils to help us get centered and grounded at the appropriate level for what would help us to then find solutions and get beyond the obstacles.
Love that. And Steve and I were like, yeah, because again, this is why we're in this profession, because we know that that was me. I was like the counselor to my parents and
Right.
family and relatives, and I'm like, I'm only 12. But it didn't matter, because a fish knows how to swim. It knows how to swim early on, right? That's its superpower, and that's how you know that alignment. I love this. Steve, I can't wait to hear yours.
I think it's very similar to Taron's in that regard. You know, one of the things I think I've been gifted with is to be able to be present in the present moment. You know, even when people say that I can't meditate, and I don't know why, because whenever I meditate, I can go deep right away. And I've always had that ability, but I've always had the ability to intuit what's going on, what's not being said, you know, versus, you know, what people will tell you. So I think, you know, naturally that's why I was drawn into the work I do. And being a good listener, you know, I think that's a really good skill that a lot of people are too busy talking and giving advice without listening to what's being said, and again, to what's not being said. So I think just being present, you know, with that, and, you know, a tool is a clock, right? Because then I can look at, you know, how am I being present, moment by moment, hour by hour, you know, day by day. And it's amazing how much one can accomplish when you're present. But so many people struggle with that because of, you know, so they're living in the past or the future, and they're not present in the precious present. So I think that's a gift that I've got, and it's a gift that I like to share with people, is the ability to be present no matter what's going on all around you. You know, Taron uses his oils. I use, you know, my coaching methods and stuff, and yeah, it's just a wonderful, how can I say, it's a great awareness to be aware of that, you know, to know what that gift is. And so many people you speak to, they really don't know what their superpower is, so to speak, and they go on struggling through life trying to find that, you know. And once you find it, I think your whole, Taron spoke about perspective, your whole perspective on life changes, because you're looking through a different lens. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
It's perfect. And Steve, I love that you brought in the clock, and you know, because we did that compass card session together, and
yes.
You know, when you give kids these opportunities to create these compass cards, which is what is your spirit animal, and what is your lesson for life, and what's your habit, your tool, your tip, and your activity to teach this, to own this. Like, one of the issues is, you could imagine just that little fish, right? Here he is trying to compete with the bird in the sky, and the squirrel on the tree, and the elephant, and all those things, because he hasn't found his lane. And how many people have not found their water? Like the fish, if you have, of course, you're trying to compete with all these animals. You're trying to compete in all these different locations. Well, of course you're going to feel incompetent. Of course you're not going to feel good. But imagine, and you've seen those people. You see the birds in the sky. You know they're in alignment. You know they're doing what they love to do. And you're like, well, how come I haven't found that? And so you're lost, and you're trying to compete with all of them, and you never will, because fish will never be better than the bird in the sky. But when you find your water and you find your lane, magic happens.
And it's funny, we were having that conversation last night, and we were talking, Ariane and I were talking about that, about how so many people, companies hire people to do a job, but they end up putting them into a different role. Right. And then they wonder why they don't succeed, you know, instead of hiring someone to do, I mean, you wouldn't hire the flight attendant to fly the plane. And you see that so often in companies, and, you know, and it's the same I'm a big soccer for North Americans. I'm a big football fan. And that's one of the things that you see, you know, there's some teams that go about signing on all the top players in the world, all geniuses, but they've never learned how to play together community, as Taron was speaking about, and so they never win anything. And then you have a team that has, good players, but they may not be superstars. But the one thing that they do great is they come together and they're able to play off one another's unique gifts, but they do it in a way that they come together as a team. And I think that's how the top companies succeed in the world. It's not necessarily that they've got all the geniuses, the top superstars working for them, but they've got people who they hire them for their unique skills, and they allow them to use those unique skills in the workplace. And together, that collaborative approach, they create, some amazing breakthroughs in science and business and education.
They're in the right position, right?
Yeah.
You're not just trying to fill a seat. You want to make sure that everybody is doing what their natural born gifts and talents and super gifts are. Because when everybody's in, you don't just want to fill a seat, you want to fill a role, like you said. And so you want to make sure that that role is connected to your soul, right? It's your soul's mission and vision, and you know it. And when you have that, and now you saw all three of us shared what our superpowers are and what our gifts are. So now if you need somebody to be able to connect with someone and be intuitive work, one of three of us, all three of us are going to be able to be that person. Don't ask us to do something that we're not good and confident in, because then you're not going to get the best results from us either. So the whole job is know yourself first. And we should be helping children learn about their inner world, their self discovery, so that they can place themselves later on in the world. Isn't that what education is? Learn about yourself and the world.
Yeah, so the goal is to connect the role to your soul.
Correct.
I really like that. Yes. Yeah, the role to your soul, right? And it's interesting because even let's just go into our world a little bit. So we're in various ways mentors, where that's what I call my work is mentorship, because I find that I'm not only working with, your business acumen, but I'm working with your daily routine. I'm working with how you speak to your kids, and I'm working with when your wife or your husband has had an issue with you, and now that's, I'm working with all of you. And so mentorship is a great way. But in that process, also talk about coming to unity, and even in every field, but I know this field very well, the field of self-help and people, there's tremendous amount of competition. And I approach it differently. I mean, I have my quote unquote clients, right? And now, so Tammy's my client, but let's say I'm working with Tammy and I'm identifying a couple of areas in which I know that I have a colleague or two that have a great competence, right? That Tammy, my client, that I'm charged with helping resolve and dissolve and feel and heal, right? So I will step in and say, Tammy, you know what? I'd like to bring in so-and-so to work with us, so that I think they can bring a certain perspective or facet which will help in your healing. So am I now diluting my, and am I exposing my client to somebody else? And should I be competing and keeping out and they might, so it's interesting to notice that how we even conduct ourselves daily, do we actually embody that? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And for you to teach that to the little people right from the beginning, it's not that there isn't enough. It's that the pie is more than big enough for everyone. See, the whole concept is in the speaking world. That was a philosophy when I was part of the Association of Professional Speakers. The gentleman who started it, his philosophy was get away from this. The pie is only so big and I need to get my piece. Rather, it's like it is such a huge pie, and there is a piece for everyone in it. And he taught that if you come into it with that attitude, you will see that play out.
Mm-hmm. You know what I love about this conversation is, like, we teach, each month we have an assembly program, and one of them was teaching children don't take more than you need. A lot of times we're so afraid that we're in fear, and so the elephant doesn't take more than it needs, and all the animals don't take more than it needs because it trusts that it has enough for everybody to go around. When we take as humans more than we need, how much waste do we create? right? And then so there's not enough for others. But so if we start to understand, yes, we're an individual, but we're part of a unity. We're part of a global, one world, one earth, one humanity. And I like to do this. If everybody just took care of themselves, right? Everybody took care of themselves. That's just take care of your own backyard. There's over 7 billion of us. Again, if everybody just picked up one piece of garbage, what could we do where we all just do one thing, but together? We can transform the world in an instant. We can transform garbage, litter, just picking up one thing. How simple, how easy, how fast, but it's about coming together as one. I do my one thing and everybody else in the world does their one thing, and together we create a transformation. But it takes that kind of mentality. And I show my students that. I'll take bean bags and I'll throw them all around the gym. And I'll ask one student to go pick it up, whoever wants to. And we time them. And then I throw all of them again. And I say, everybody just pick up one and come back. And let's see how fast we can do this. And
wow.
They did it really quick, in an instant.
So,
and I also talk about our energy balls, right? That if we're coming at the door, we have 4 energy balls: our anger, our scared, our sad, and our joyful one. Which energy ball do we want to bring into kindergarten masterclass today? Well, Miss Vallieres says, let's pick up the beautiful, peaceful, green, joyful energy ball, because when we all show up that way, we get to learn in that environment together. And I might have had a bad day, but I put that down and then I go revisit it, but I don't bring it everywhere I go, right? And it's just about conscious community and teaching these little people. And I have kids that if I even do a demonstration, I don't want to pick up that ball. They do not want to pick up that red, angry ball. They want the beautiful, joyful, peaceful ball, because that's the environment we're setting up. And that's the environment they love to learn and grow and share in community with.
So, Tammy, I've got a question for you. You know, as I've traveled the world, the most common issue that I hear from, people from all walks of life, from A-list celebrities to, stay-at-home mums, the most common issue I hear is, I'm not enough. And so where does that start? Where do they learn that from? Is it from kindergarten?
Here's the thing. I don't want to say it's in one place, right? They hear it from the media. They hear it from their parents. They hear it from themselves. They hear it from, television, radio. They hear it in comparison with what we all should look like. Everything becomes this, I'm not enough. And at the end of it, I love that you say this, Steve, because I feel like every coaching call I've ever done comes down to that one thing. We don't feel like we're enough. And where is that built from? Because we're always being told we're not good enough, pretty enough, skinny enough, talented enough, because we're always, we haven't really figured out our authenticity. We haven't owned our unique imprint in the world and original individuality. Because here's the thing is, if I own who I am and I'm celebrated for who I am, then I feel like I'm more than enough. But it's this concept that we're always trying to be in comparison to each other. And then we don't feel good enough, right? It's that fish again. If he's comparing himself to all the other animals in the jungle, he's never going to feel enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's no accidents in the universe. Fish is born a fish for a reason, and a bird and an elephant and a giraffe. And I mean, I don't feel that there's any accidents. And so each one of us is here in perfect divine manifestation.
Right.
And I don't think the creator would send the created without a gift. It's just rude, right? It's just rude to show up without a gift. Right.
We all have gifts and talents. The problem is we're not using them.
Well, that's it. Well, we don't even so the first piece there is awareness. And what you're doing, as I hear in my Taron talk, is you're creating an awareness and an environment that's conducive to awareness, which I think is critical for learning, rather than actually narrowing and putting blinders on and saying, only know this and read this and learn this and don't ask questions, just answer the questions, don't ask them. I think you're doing the opposite, and you're creating an awareness. of not only what is it we need to learn, but who is the one doing the learning. Like what's the interaction between who you are. And I just think it's really interesting that you were talking about individual but not separate, because we did a whole episode on on that. And again, we're very much, I thought maybe Steve slipped you that episode to listen to, because you were saying the very things that we discussed. We're all individual. We are individual, and we must celebrate that individuality, because exactly for the reason that each individual has a gift, right? Yet we're not separate, individual but not separate. So thanks for reinforcing that. That's wonderful.
Well, I like saying, you think about the stars in the sky, right? Every star shining its brightest lights up our world. Could you imagine if our whole world felt empowered and confident to really shine our light? But what happens is when somebody shines their light, somebody, is resentful. And that only happens because they don't realize the light that's within themselves. So when we all start to own our own light and shine our light and celebrate everybody's light and realize there's enough space in the sky and there's enough space in the world to really shine, and then we realize the benefit, what happens when everybody shines, we've got a beautiful planet that's in heart harmony and hand harmony with one another and head harmony, right? Like that's why my whole thing is, what are the qualities and attributes of a healthy hero? They have a growth mindset, right? They have a beautiful heart where they're always giving back, and they have their healthy body, right? Their gut health. So you think about the alignment of that. And now what happens when all those heroes like the Avengers come together? Now they go out into the world and they help humanity, right? So imagine if we all showed up in the classroom as our healthy hero. One thing I always say to my students is the hero in me sees the hero in you. And we're here to grow our 3 super brains, our head brain, our heart brain, and our gut brain, so we can become the best that we can be. And how are we use our hands for helping, not hurting, right? How are we going to help one another and celebrate, our uniqueness, but come together in collaboration in community? And that's why it's beautiful. I literally teach in kindergarten, utopia, heaven on earth. Like my classrooms, it's like yoga. I come into class, it's the mini world I want to live in with those little beautiful souls every day. It's the world I wish was the greater world, is what I have experienced in my classroom each and every day with those little beautiful shining stars.
Well, the word yoga means yug, which means to connect. Okay, so what you've just described literally is, yoga is what? To bring spirit, unmanifest and the manifest, spirit and body, to create a yoke, to bring together so that we are aligned and in full power. So you've talked about head and heart and body. And I have 2 chapters dedicated to that in the book called Getting Ahead Through the Heart. And the qualities of getting ahead through the heart, like how do we know? So again, we're just so aligned in that understanding. And I really want to make it clear that, yes, we're talking about models for little people, but I'm hoping it's not too late for big people.
Oh, no. Well, here's the thing, right, guys? We have our hero inside of us, our villain, and our victim. All of us have those 3. Who is going to show up? Who do you, and that becomes a choice right here, right now. Yes. Right? It's the id, the ego, and the superego, but I just use it in the hero's language. The hero for me, when I show up each day, it's a choice to show up as my hero, because I could easily turn into the victim. I'm too tired. Somebody take care of me. Or the villain, where I'm reactive and I'm the world. I'm angry at the world. Right? But if you think about it, who's going to create the quality of life that you want to live each day? It's not going to be your victim, and it's not going to be your villain. So I love it. Right? So champion that inner hero in yourself to wake up and lead your life, because you don't want the other 2 leading your life. It's not a great life.
No, and I think all of us have probably had a few stories around, the victim train, right? You might have had a few years on it, yeah, right. And how was it? How was the journey?
Oh, it wasn't fun.
Okay, all right. So, right, and the villain journey equally. I mean, somehow we get a temporary sense of power, or somehow I've got the power, I'm in the charge because I'm the right. And so these are the archetypes we're talking that we're all come here with, right? And so, but that's also very isolating in a sense, and it's very disconnecting rather than and we are born to be in community. One of the basic needs that Steve will tell you is to belong, and therefore our longing to belong is underscoring our behavior, even if it's playing out in the opposite, which is, I don't need you. I don't have to have you. I'm better than you. I have more money than you. Look at everything that I have that you don't have. Too bad. I can do what I want to do. But at the end of the day, right, at what cost? So,
and who do you want to surround yourself with? Like for me, do you want to hang out with the victims, the villains, or the heroes? Because that circle of influence is power. So I'm very mindful, right? The thing is that it's very, if you start hanging out with all the victims, you know it's going to be a heavy, heavy journey, right? That used to be me. My ex used to say, Tammy, you don't have friends, you have patience. I thought, oh my goodness, he's right.
Oh my God, that's harsh. I mean, Tammy, you have no friends at all.
You know, it was true because I was like you guys, people always came to me for advice. And then that's the role I took on in my life. But that role was exhausting. And I realized I wasn't having fun. There was no nectar. Right? No nectar. And guess what happened? Diabetes, right? Because not enough nectar in your life, it manifests disease in the body. And that's where that journey of self-aware and realizing what I was doing to myself, and that I wasn't helping these people because the only people that can help them is themselves. And I can't rescue. The only person I could rescue and I had full autonomy over was myself. So I left that victim and that community, and I started to step into being a voice for myself, and then stepped into my hero and started to surround myself with the circle of influence of heroes. And I'm very mindful of that now.
Wow, it's Carolyn Miss, one of my,
I love Carolyn Miss.
I love, and I speak about this often, that I love the one line. I think it's been in my life for so long. Your biography becomes your biology, and what you've just said to me is that ultimately you were able to link sugar issues, and I'm sure weight issues with the sugar issues, right? Like, how it starts to, right, with your biography. And what I've just heard you say is that you chose to take accountability and take your power back and start to become your own best friend, your own best doctor, your own best therapist, whatever you want to call it. And then surround yourself with those that you could aspire to, rather than the lowest common denominator, right?
It's so amazing that you tapped into that term, because that's exactly the person that I discovered when I discovered I was diabetic. I was in the hospital and a friend had given me Carolyn Mace's book.
Okay.
And I started to understand the archetypes, and I started to use that and realize why I had manifested this, because we're the author of our life by our design, why I manifested this and how I manifested it. And so awareness is key, and it's also power, because when you're aware and when you understand of how it shows up, then you have the power in your hands to change it.
Oh, excellent. Well,
Isn't it funny though how society encourages villains? That many times we had this. Many times have you heard this saying, nice guys finish last. And all the girls, and they like a naughty boy.
Right.
And it's interesting. And so you start to see, how we had it all skewed. Where society is not encouraging people to be the hero, but to be the villain. And so it's interesting how that plays out, and what the world would look like if we were to encourage people to celebrate their hero within.
I love that connection you just made, because it's so true, Steve. That's what we do. And that's our socializing, right? So everybody has a role in it. You know, don't just point the finger at this group, because that's what we get into the habit of, blaming it. But where can we take responsibility? Because the responsibility word is power, because what we are responsible for, we can change. And if we realize that my health, my design, and I'm going to change this. And that's exactly what happened. And how I became that teacher that I wanted to be, Taron, was because as I was changing my own toxic victim life, I started to use all the wisdom and the knowledge and the guidance and all the connections and influences and all that stuff to build it into the curriculum for my students. And that's why I lived it first.
Okay.
And that's how I was able to implement it bit by bit by bit by bit.
See, this isn't book learning. This is being on the front lines, getting the hits, the experiences, and then translating them into, so there's your inspiration again, and then translating them into something that you could use now. And your authority is your journey.
Right. The hero's journey. And as I was having my own transformation, I was seeing the transformation in my students and in my classrooms and in my school community, because it's a process. You don't get from A to Z overnight. And as you do it, you build it. And that's why I was able to learn it. And because I was embodying it, I wasn't just learning it for myself. I was then synthesizing it, sharing it, and then witnessing it, the magic happening in my classrooms and in my communities.
So every crisis is a blessing. That was your wake-up call.
It was my wake-up call. Absolutely, it was. Yeah, the doctor said I was so sick that by 42, I'd have no hands and feet if I continued on that journey.
What?
That was, and I was so sick and so unhealthy. I had no other alternative. And that's what sometimes has to happen, right? Our pain to purpose and hitting rock bottom is what started my journey to transformation.
So lucky you're not quite 42 yet, and look at you.
I know, I'm such a young'un.
Yes, and we're gonna stick to that line, you and I, Tammy. Okay, so
Absolutely.
let's get our story straight, just in case we're challenged, right? But it's just so fascinating to look at the two options we have in life. Here's an observation I want to just throw out. We're talking about victims, and you know, obviously in the work we do, we have people. Some of them are obviously stuck in that victim mode. It's kind of very plain. And some people, especially if they're smart, I find that intellect has such a way of masking the victim energy. It's very, very interesting, right? And they victimize themselves, obviously, because this is dialogue. And then they turn around and they begin to project almost like an emotional blackmail, almost like, because the mind has such a good time in fueling that victim energy. And so with you being able to, right at the beginning, teach people, little people, how to choose, despite, I mean, they don't all might have perfect homes or, you know, the ideal parents, or, you know, life is happening, right? But in the midst of that, if they know that they have a choice and a voice, I like that, like they have a choice and a voice, because the choice gives them the voice, right? So then they don't resonate to that victim mode. The adults we're working with, the ones who really want to change the pattern, we can help through psychosynthesis and many processes, Steve and I, and we can help them to reclaim their genius in that way, their light. But I really love it, again, I can't underscore it enough, to have an education system that can actually underscore that not so good things may be happening to you in life. That's called life. However, how you choose to engage, which archetypes do you choose to empower, and how can make the whole difference. So go ahead, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and what I discovered is one of my superpowers is working with those behavioral lost boys and girls, those children that have lost their way. And I was always good, even babysitting, I was better sometimes than the parents. And they were like, oh my gosh, but that was my psychology, my genius, my intuition. And so what's happened with me is it's about giving those kids an equal start, right? Because you say they don't come into the families sometimes with those skills, but at least in kindergarten, they can learn and understand this stuff so they can actually have a fair shot at going into the world and realizing that they have somebody who cares about them, that believes from them right from the beginning, before those habits are in form and in place. And that is that. And I teach all of this through storytelling, because we learn through stories. We don't learn through facts, right? We learn maybe 10 to 15% if it's told in a fact, but we learn 90 to 95% if it's told through stories. And we also learn not as the listener, but we learn as the teacher. So in Kindergarten Masterclass, they are all learning through storytelling, fact and fiction, and they are all master teachers who get to come up to the front of the class and teach and talk and teach and tell with partnerships and mentorships. So this is how we learn it, because we have to live it, we have to embody it, we have to experience it, and it uses it and accesses a different part of our brain when we have to teach something versus when we're just listening and learning something. So I always say we're building two superpowers: your stillness and silent muscle, because that's the roadblock to learning, is when there's all this noise and distraction. So we want to get rid of the roadblock of noise. So listen first, learn, and then show up as the leader. And they know at the end of it, they get to lead. It's not just listen, learn, listen, learn, listen, learn all through the, their academic career. They know that once you learn it, and listen, you have to listen first, and then you learn it, you get to lead it. So now
that's amazing.
There's a reason to show up. There's a reason to lean in and pay attention in kindergarten. And they know, and they want more than anything. And this is what I've realized in kindergarten. Little people want a voice. They want to vote, and they want to be seen, and they want to be heard. So when you allow that, and you empower them, and you stop micromanaging them, because you give them the tools, the opportunities, and the belief that they're capable and competent, it is magic, and it transforms children and classrooms.
It's the same in the workplace. You know that?
Exactly.
Employees want a voice, and they want to be seen and heard. And how many times do they say people don't leave a job just for the money? They leave because they weren't recognized, and so it's no different. It carries right through.
Because our soul wants it, right? Our soul wants that freedom. I think we lost Taron on that. He went invisible. That's a superpower right now.
I would love for you to, we've got a few minutes left. I'd love you to just speak a little bit about your compass card process.
Well, even better than me speaking about my compass card process is me asking you to share the experience together. So let's do this together.
Okay.
So this week we had an opportunity. First off, if I could only do one thing for the rest of my life, I always say these compass cards is the one thing I would do forever and ever, because I absolutely love them. Because number one, it allows me to connect with the person I'm working with on a very deep level, and it gives me a deep dive into who they are very quickly. So you can speak to that. So it takes you, it's basically is a compass where it talks about your spirit animal, your lesson for life, your little why or big why, your habit, your tool, and your tip. So if you want to talk a little bit about what your experience was, that I would love for you to share that from your perspective.
Sure. I mean, I think it was absolutely amazing and mind-blowing, if I could say that I was able to learn so much about myself in, I think it was even less than an hour. It was, I don't know, it was like you were incredibly psychic and just boom, and I've discovered, the spirit animal and my lesson for life. So the spirit animal was a dog, and the dog, the qualities that admired in a dog were awareness, loving unconditionally, and the power of play. It does have the ability to be playful, and so I started to see how does that play out in my life. And then my daily habit was, present moment awareness. How can I implement that into my life? Was, using the tool of the clock, breaking it down moment by moment, hour by hour, morning, afternoon, evening.
And that was powerful. Honestly, that tool.
That was huge. That was huge. To discover how much of the day do I spend in present moment awareness, and how much of the day am I spending being distracted, by other stuff. And then, the additional tools were, for breath work, to use a little feather to remind me to be breathing, deeply and easily. Managing my energy and seeing how the chakras are playing out. So using some crystals to represent that. And the magic wand for my creativity and imagination. So these were little tools that could remind me of, how am I being right now through the day? And one of my homework that he gave me was to create because I'm a musician and I love music. So one of my homework was, to create a playlist to listen to every day that, and one of the first song that came to mind was Lou Reed, It's Such a Perfect Day. What a Wonderful World, Louis Armstrong and stuff. And so my mind, the creativity just started running rampant of creating this playlist that I could listen to every day. And I could be listening to it while I'm driving, while I'm working, on a project. But I'm in present moment awareness, and that message is being ingrained again and again and again. But it was such an incredible experience to go through that and learn so much in such a short period of time. And I realized, that this is something that I could incorporate into my practice with my clients. It's not just for little people,
No.
but to give little people this tool at such a young age, and for them to discover that about themselves. Oh my God, imagine what they're like, by the time they graduate. So
it addresses the problem about kids at the end of their academic career not knowing who they are. If you
Yes.
had this at the very beginning, you can build upon this. And that's what the power of that is, that you're talking as adults. And sometimes, Steve, and Taron, we have so much information. We have a dinosaur that it's hard to scope it down to one thing or two things or five things, right? Because we have so much. What I love about this compass card, even the benefit of working with adults, is that we can narrow it down for them. Whereas kids, we could at least put it on the table for them. But as adults, we have so much content and so much information, we don't even know sometimes how to narrow this down. And we co-create this with the compass card. And you literally said, holy, this is it, bang on. But would you have been able to do that without that process? I don't know. This is why I love these cards so much, because there's so much information. It's like, it's an ocean of noise out there. And then how do we find the treasure?
Yes.
Right? That's like a map for us. That's how I call them. Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, this is thank you. Did I ever mention Mercury retrograde to anyone?
Yeah.
We knew technology, when all these minds come together and the energy is so high, technology always has a way of just
and there is no logical reason what it started to kick me off and on and off. The broadcast is continuing, but it's very strange here that no internet, it's interrupted, it's here. And I'm thinking, what were you guys needing to talk about that I wasn't supposed to listen to? So
we're talking about you.
I knew it. I don't know who you paid to kick me off here, but I'm going to need a session now to get over my paranoia. Did I tell you that was one of my special powers, paranoia? So
we thought it was invisibility, Taron. We thought you were invisible and you were out there, calling all the souls to come in and listen.
Well, I'm sure looking forward to my compass card session with you, and we all need a hand, no matter how much we give a hand. We all need each other to mirror back and help us to acknowledge our own giftedness. And so we definitely look forward to sharing some of these gifts with each other and moving forward. So I want to wrap up our session simply because we're getting into that zone now where people probably need to get on with whatever else they need to do, but promise to have you back because this just felt like a beginning and so much to learn about. I'd love to, just before we end though, do you have an example of a young man that may, like these young people are learning, but as a practical outcome, I think you were mentioning a gentleman to me who has his own podcast. Could you just wrap up with his little story, please?
Yeah, I said to you, I've surrounded myself with superheroes, right? And one is a super mom called Sylvia Tam, and we were working with kid heroes around the world. And she is a mompreneur raising kidpreneurs, and her son is Ben, and he's a kid CEO. He has his own podcast. He was the winner of Genius U entrepreneur program. He's just a firecracker, and he's got a global business with other kids, and he interviews other kids like himself that are change agents and shining examples in the world. So I know he would be an amazing guest for you guys to interview and talk to, because this guy, one of the questions you're going to have to ask him, because I love this and I've heard him on other shows, is, why is it important to start young? And I loved his answer. I loved his answer because he gives such an articulate, strong, brilliant answer on why it's important for kids to do all of this stuff at a young age.
Wow. And how old is he, or young is he, should I say?
I believe he's only 14, but here's the thing.
Oh.
Sylvia is a super mom and has 3 super children. He's just one of them that has his own Kid CEO podcast. But it's, again, comes down to the root of parenting, teaching, mentoring, right? Somebody believing in you is there's always somebody behind that child. Just remember that. So get behind a child, right? That's the whole message.
Well, Steve, we've definitely got to reach out to Ben and see if he will do us the honor of teaching us a few things. I'm open and really looking forward. So that's a great story. So in case people want a practical, real life example of what you're talking about here, they can check it out and judge for themselves when they see that. So, Tammy, thank you so much for taking the time and the energy and bringing your genius to this podcast. You've just brought lots of light into it, and I know people are going to absolutely just eat it up. They're going to love it. And so let's play more. What do you think, Steve?
Yes.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much,
honor.
Tammy, for being on. Yes.
And we shall all connect very soon. Of course, we're always connected, but when the internet's working, we'll connect again soon.
I love it. You guys are doing amazing work, and I love everything. I love your logo, your brand, what you are, who you are, and what you're doing to bring more light, love, and harmony into the world. And I just honor both your spirits, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And we will, we always like, you drew the peace card today. So oftentimes we say, may peace be with you, or in the Hindi, it's Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. May peace be with you. See you again soon, my friend.
We trust you found practical value in this podcast and will enthusiastically share it with others in your circle. And if you are so moved, leave us a review or write a post on social, tagging #ChaiChatPodcast, and we will show our appreciation. Promise. Taron Puri and Steve Harvey welcome you to join us for a Chai Chat at all of our live events and more. Connect with us with your questions, topic suggestions, and reviews at info@ChaiChatPodcast.com.